What's up, guys? It's James from Lucrative MMA. I'm back to drop some more knowledge on you. And today we're going to be doing something a bit different because this is a bit of a special day for me. This is the first day that I'm putting my podcast out. So this is the first edition of my podcast, which I cleverly named the Lucrative MMA Betting Podcast. Didn't take me long to come up with that name, as you can guess. And I mean, by the name, you can probably guess what this podcast is going to be about. So it's going to be a weekly podcast where each week I'll put out one episode where I'm talking about the upcoming UFC card from a betting perspective. So it's still in the early stages. So, I may adapt it as I go. And as I get feedback from you guys, I welcome all feedback. So you can just find me on my social medias, Lucrative MMA, and let me know if you want me to add anything in the podcast or change anything. But at the moment, what I'm going to be doing every week is I'll be talking about the main event. This week, we've got Curtis Blaydes versus Derek Lewis. And all of the fights I'll be talking about are always from a betting perspective because I am a sports bettor. So I'll be talking about the main event. I'll also be talking about one of the most exciting fights on the card from a betting perspective. And I'll also be talking about one of the most inaccurate betting lines that I think there is on the card. So before I get into it, I did want to give a quick shout out to some other people who have solid MMA betting podcasts in the space because they've inspired me to do this, just watching them. And also, it'll be good to shed some light on these people. The guys I'm going to shout out, they don't really need much light shedding on them. They have a lot bigger podcast than me, but every little helps. And I just wanted to give them a quick shout out. So the first person, and this is in no particular order, I just wrote the names down. The first person is Manpreet from MMA Lock of the Night. He has a podcast called the MMA Lockcast. He's a very sharp guy. He's from Canada. If you want to listen to him for some entertainment and for some solid reads, I definitely recommend listening to him. He gives out betting advice and he tells you the exact bets he does every week, as well as breaking down the full card. So you get a lot of information from him. The next up I wanted to shout out was Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast. He's got a very entertaining podcast, which he does the same thing as Manpreet, really. He goes through the whole card from a betting perspective. I know he puts out his podcast pretty early in the week. So, a lot of these podcasts and MMA content comes out a bit later in the week. So if you did want something a bit earlier in the week, I would definitely listen to that. He's what's known as a dog catcher. So if you guys like your underdogs, like betting on your underdogs, definitely listen to Clint because he does get quite a few underdogs. I know he backed Anthony Fluffy Hernandez at plus 350 last week against Vieira. So, when all of your parlays were being busted, he was actually laughing and cashing. So, and just in general, it's a very entertaining podcast. He's a very positive guy and it's good to have in this space. The next person is Z, and he has a weekly podcast called the Fair Play Podcast. He brings on guest gamblers, I think usually around 2 or 3 guest gamblers, on his podcast. So if you wanted to listen to him, not only do you get information from him, but also information from other sharp guys. So, that's always good to get different perspectives. Z's probably the first person who I'd say showed me love in this space. But regardless of all that, he's a very sharp guy. I know he bet on Corey Sandhagen by TKO KO at like plus 250 or something like that a couple of weeks ago. And if you did listen to his podcast, you will learn not only about the fights and how to read fights, but also about the numbers behind gambling, implied probability, all of that boring stuff that you actually do have to know if you want to make money from this game long term. The next we have is the Club and Sub podcast with John, Quinn, Luke, and C. So there's 4 of them, 4-man panel, and they go back and forth with each other on the fights for the upcoming UFC card. They go through the whole card breakdown. And to be honest, all of them are super sharp. And it's always good to get different perspectives. When you listen to people who disagree with each other, it can actually it's definitely beneficial for you. So that's another podcast I would shout out. And then we've got the Dog or Pass podcast from Cody and Paul. These guys are OGs in the game. I believe they're up in Canada as well. And if you want some if you want a lot of entertainment as well as very, very solid, consistent reads and good quality content every single week, then I definitely recommend them. But that's it, guys. We're here for the Lucrative MMA Betting Podcast. So let's start this damn podcast right now. I just wanted to get that out of the way. Now, first of all, we'll go straight into it. We got Derek Lewis taking on Curtis Blaydes this weekend, right? We got the Black Beast fight week, which is always a good fight week, right? Derek Lewis brings a lot of entertainment to the table. I could go on for hours about the different jokes Derek Lewis has said and how many times he's made me laugh. And I was actually watching a video earlier where Derek Lewis was kind of taking a shot at Curtis Blaydes. But, he does it in typical Derek Lewis nature. He's just staring at the camera, no emotion. And he was talking about that he's changed his game plan for this fight. He's going to shoot straight in for the takedown. He's going to take Curtis Blaydes down. And, he doesn't want any part of the striking to Curtis Blaydes. Obviously, it's the Black Beast. So we know he's talking shit, but he's a very funny guy. But I have to say, I do think he's in for it this weekend. And what I mean by that is that he's going to go for a ride. He's going to go for many, many rides. Just like Alexander Volkov did when he fought Curtis Blaydes in Blaydes' last fight. And I don't see any difference here. Curtis Blaydes is a very, very solid. I'm not even going to call him a prospect now. He's top 3, top 4 at heavyweight. I don't know where he's ranked, but, he could be a champion one day. Curtis Blaydes has only ever lost to Francis Ngannou, and most of you will know his style, which is the wrestling style. He's like a heavyweight Khabib. He averages so many takedowns per 15 minutes. I think he's up at about 5 or 6 takedowns per 15 minutes, which is pretty extraordinary, especially at a weight class like heavyweight. It's a lot easier on the cardio when you're a lighter weight class to wrestle. If you're 240 pounds and you have to wrestle other men who are 240 pounds, it's hard to do. But he does train at Elevation Fight Team, and they are known for good cardio. A lot of people are kind of slagging off Curtis Blaydes because he got a little bit tired in round 4 and 5 against Volkov, but he won a decision against Volkov. I understand if he completely gassed out in 4 and 5 and got stopped by Volkov, then maybe you have something to say. But just because he got tired, you can't really say much about that because, that fight was fought at a furious pace, and he managed to get the takedowns even in round 4 and 5 when he was tired, and he got a dominant decision. So, people are saying that they have cardio, they think he has cardio issues. But in fact, I believe he showed us he doesn't have cardio issues. And what I mean by that is he showed us if he does get tired, then he can push through. And he did push through. So the way I see this fight breaking down is Curtis Blaydes just going to consistently spam them takedowns. He makes no meat and bones about it. He tells you in his interviews before, and he has told us in an interview before this fight that I just listened to with Ariel Helwani, that he's going to keep taking these guys down until they make him not take him down. Like in a Junior Dos Santos fight, Junior Dos Santos was able to stuff his takedowns, and then Curtis Blaydes ended up standing with him, and they actually got a stoppage on the feet against Junior Dos Santos, which is, is commendable. So his striking's coming along, his wrestling's always been there, and I just think he's going to consistently take Derek Lewis down in this fight, and I believe he will probably get the stoppage in round 3 or 4. If Derek Lewis had solid 5-round cardio, I probably would be backing Curtis Blaydes by decision at the plus 300, plus 330 range it's in. But I can't trust Derek Lewis's cardio in a 5-round fight. If it was a 3-round fight, I may be tempted by the decision. But obviously the odds would be a bit less then, and so it probably wouldn't tempt me as much because I don't think it's going to take too long for Derek Lewis to get tired in this fight. I do think there may be a couple of hairy moments. Anytime anybody is standing with Derek Lewis on the feet, it's hairy. So I do expect Derek Lewis to connect with that jumping switch kick he does, which is crazy for a 260-pound man. There's a lot of force behind that. There's a lot of weight. But, Curtis Blaydes has only ever been stopped by Francis Ngannou. And when he got stopped by Francis Ngannou, both times in the first fight and the rematch, he still wasn't unconscious, So you have to respect Curtis Blaydes' chin. We've seen him eat a flying knee from over him, and Curtis Blaydes has probably got one of the best chins in the division. So until we see his chin waver, we can't assume Derek Lewis is going to go out there and put him out. Now, this is heavyweight. This is a heavyweight mixed martial arts contest. So Derek Lewis is always live against anyone for a KO in any fight ever. But, he's minus 400. Curtis Blaydes is for a reason here. So Curtis Blaydes is minus 400. Derek Lewis is about plus 315, depending on where you shop. And yeah, I don't have any hot takes in this one, guys. I think Curtis Blaydes is gonna win a dominant decision. The only way Derek Lewis is gonna win this fight is if he catches him at some point. And I find it hard to see that's gonna happen because he's fought some higher level strikers like Alexander Volkov in his last fight. He's fought Overeem and they wasn't able to catch him. And if they was able to catch him, they wasn't able to put him out. So I'm going to take Curtis Blaydes for the win here. And as I said, when I started talking about this fight, I'd probably say he's going to win by third or fourth round TKO. I know the submission prop is about, I think it was plus 1,000 at one point, but I think it's settled at about plus 600 now, depending on what book you have available to you. I know a lot of people are taking a shot on that. The thing about Curtis Blaydes is that, he's not a submission guy. In fact, I don't think he's ever attempted one submission. So in the UFC, that is. So it's hard for me to back that prop, even at them odds, when he's never attempted a submission. Now, the thinking is that Lewis is going to be so tired, but he maybe won't be able to get pounded out because Lewis is hard to deal with and he'll probably still be defending himself if he's getting punched. But if you wrap up a rear naked choke or an arm triangle, he's just going to give up and tap. We did see Cormier take him down and submit him. And that was like the only out and out wrestler that Derek Lewis has ever fought. So, you could put two and two together and say, this is another out and out wrestler. He's going to be on the floor a lot. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for submission attempts. And I don't hate anyone taking the shot on the plus 600 to plus 1,000 prop odd for Curtis Blaydes by submission. But just for me, I can't back it because I haven't seen it before, right? I haven't seen Curtis Blaydes attempt these takedowns. So I just can't back it. So I don't have much more on that, guys. I mean, I covered the main event pretty well. Curtis Blaydes, I think he's going to win. Now we're going to be talking about one of the most exciting fights on the card. Now, this isn't very easy for me because there is quite a few exciting fights on this card. I know some people are saying this card's not very good, but, they said that last week and it turned out to be a bit of a banger of a card. And I'm a bit of an MMA fiend anyway. I like all the cards. So, when I was looking through this card, some of the fights that stuck out to me were, let's have a look at the card. I have it up right here. Drakkar Klose versus Louis Payne. Yeah, I think that's going to be a decent fight. I think most of it will play out on the feet, striking. So it'll be pretty exciting. There'll be some head kicks thrown, some hard body shots. And then another fight, which I thought could be one of the most exciting fights on the card, and I think will be, is Jared Gordon versus Danny Chavez. Danny Chavez is an exciting fighter. He had a great debut. And there's not a lot of tape on Danny Chavez, but he does seem like a very exciting fighter. He's been throwing calf kicks for 6 years. I watched one of his 2015 fights and he was hitting his opponent heavy with calf kicks. That was kind of before calf kicks were really prominent in the game. So he's a very exciting fighter. And Jared Gordon is a come forward pressure fighter. So he's going to put it on Danny Chavez. So that was one I was looking at. And then another one I was looking at was Nassourdine Imavov versus Phil Hawes. That's going to be an absolute banger of a fight. And I was going to pick that for my most exciting fight, but I've actually opted to go for Alexei Oleinik versus Chris Daukaus. And one of the reasons for this is because I actually taped Imavov versus Hawes, over a month ago when they was originally scheduled to fight. I wrote my notes down. I put my bets in for that fight. And I haven't taped it since, right? I mean, I already had bets on the fight. I already had notes on the fight. And in a month, nothing's changed in my opinion. So I've actually put the same bets as I did last month on this month. And when I say last month, I don't exactly remember when the fight was originally scheduled. It may have been, 2 months ago or something, but, it was in the past. But I did tape on Alexei Oleinik versus Chris Daukaus pretty recently about 3 days ago, and it's just fresh in my memory. And so I'm going to talk about that a little bit. So that's going to be my pick for the most exciting fight on the card. They're heavyweights, so a lot of heavyweight fights are exciting anyway. I mean, in that first round, until they gas, they're exciting. Obviously, if they do gas and no one gets each other out of there, then they can get very boring. But we've got Chris Daukaus, who is he's made waves in the heavyweight division, really, which isn't really hard. You know, you get a couple of quick knockouts and people are touting you as, you know, a very solid heavyweight prospect. The heavyweight division isn't very top heavy, and anytime you have a new guy coming in and doing what Chris Daukaus has done in his last 2 fights, there's going to be some buzz around you. So he's taking on Alexei Oleinik, though, right? Who is one of the most veterans in the whole game. So his record is 59 wins, 14 losses, and 1 draw. So, you know, I'm not very good at maths, guys, but he's got about 70 fights. I mean, 75 fights, I believe. 74 fights he's got, it looks like, yeah. And that is probably, I'm pretty sure, I'm almost certain that is the most number of fights that any UFC fighter has on the roster in any weight class. It's probably up there for the most MMA fights any MMA fighter in the world has had. And when I was taping this fight, a little stat come up on Alexei Oleinik's last fight, and it said that Alexei Oleinik is the only fighter on the UFC roster to have won in 4 decades. So, I mean, that stat alone is absolutely crazy. You know, he's been fighting for a long, long time. And this fight is your classic matchup, guys, which is old veteran, experienced veteran versus young up-and-comer. We have another one on the card, which I will talk about after this, which is Andrei Arlovski versus Tom Aspinall. And that's heavyweight as well. So it looks like the UFC knows what they're doing on this card, you know. They're putting the new, young, up-and-coming heavyweights, Tom Aspinall and Chris Daukaus, against the old, veteran, savvy guys, Andrei Arlovski and Alexei Oleinik. I see this Oleinik versus Daukaus fight, you know, as a very volatile matchup. I know a lot of people are pretty high on Daukaus here, but I went and done pretty deep dive on tape for this fight, and I have seen Chris Daukaus taken down and kind of grinded out in the past, which, you know, it did get me a little bit worried taking on someone like Alexei Oleinik, who is a very opportunistic submission grappler. You know, we've seen him get that Ezekiel choke from bottom a couple of times. And look, if he's on top of you, even if he's under you, he's very live for a submission. I have seen Chris Daukaus get put in submission attempts in the past. And look, I will say, I'll give Chris Daukaus some respect because Chris Daukaus seems to have a pretty decent ground game. You know, even like 5-6 years ago on the regional scene, I seen him roll for leg locks and, you know, escape leg locks and reverse sweep positions. But there's levels to this game, guys. And Chris Daukaus is a boxer at the end of the day. You know, he's got fast hands. He comes out in a boxing stance and he wants to put the hands on you, right? Alexei Oleinik is just a better grappler. You know, he's levels above Chris Daukaus, in my opinion. If you couple that with Chris Daukaus having only 13 fights and Alexei Oleinik having 74, 75 fights, it's not too much of a hot take to say that if Alexei Oleinik gets on top of Chris Daukaus, the fight is probably going to be over. If I had to lean one side, I probably would lean the Chris Daukaus side, though, but only just. Very, very close, because I do see Alexei Oleinik getting a takedown in this fight. You know, he may get a takedown when he's hurt. I do think Chris Daukaus is probably going to put the hands on him early and hurt him. But Alexei Oleinik, you know, he can be banged out. You know, we saw Walt Harris knock him out in about 12 seconds, but I don't think Chris Daukaus has that explosive, athletic, one-shot power that Walt Harris does. And I do see Alexei Oleinik taking a couple punches, but maybe he's able to drag Chris Daukaus to the ground. If that happens, who knows what's going to happen, guys. Chris Daukaus may get back to his feet and put it on Alexei Oleinik, but, you know, I can't be confident on either side. And because of where the current odds are lined at, Alexei Oleinik is a plus 150 underdog. Chris Daukaus is a minus 180 favorite, depending on where you shop. Because of these current odds, I can't make a bet. So I don't have any money line plays on this fight. I think this fight is going to be an absolute banger. And to be honest, I don't hate anyone taking the shot on either side. But as I said, the line is pretty accurate in my opinion. So I wouldn't recommend a bet on either side. Look, you might have a bet on Chris Daukaus and he might go out there and knock him out in 20 seconds. And, you feel like a very sharp guy because your bet won in 20 seconds. But I just feel like if these guys fought 100 times, which is what you always have to think when you're capping fights, I feel like if they did fight 100 times, I think it's closer to 50-50. I think Alexei Oleinik probably gets the sub 50 times. Daukaus probably gets the knockout 50 times. As I said, maybe 60-40 the other way. And if it was 60-40 the other way, 60-40 to Daukaus, then the line is like exactly accurate, especially with Alexei Oleinik as a plus 150. So I will say, though, the reason I chose it for my most exciting fight is because this fight is going to be an absolute banger. Chris Daukaus is going to come out there, put the pressure on him. He's going to know what he needs to do to beat Alexei Oleinik. And then Alexei Oleinik doesn't fight any other way. I've got Alexei Oleinik's record up here. I'm just going to go through his record. And, it's pretty funny because if he doesn't stop you, he's getting stopped. So his last fight, he almost stopped Derek Lewis in the first round with that scarf hold. I mean, Lewis said himself that he was almost going to tap from that. But, Lewis is a stubborn guy and Alexei couldn't get the tap. And then Alexei got stopped 21 seconds into round 2. The fight before that was against Fabricio Verdum. It went to decision, but this was a bit of an anomaly. They were both old guys and that fight was there was some bombs being landed, especially in that first round by Alexei. But, two old guys, oftentimes it is a kind of a weird heavyweight back and forth slobber knocker, but no one goes down. There isn't that accurate pinpoint striking that you get from some of the younger guys. And, when you're that old, you don't have that super explosive power as you once did, like Derek Lewis did to knock him out in his last fight. The fight before that, Maurice Green, that was a sloppy fight. Alexei got hurt, but then he was able to get a submission in round 2. The fight before that, he got knocked out in 12 seconds. The fight before that, Overeem, he got beat in round 1. Fight before that, he beat Mark Hunt in round 1. Fight before that, he beat Junior Albini in round 1. I could go on forever, but basically, Alexei Oleinik is always in exciting fights. And even if you don't like the sloppy heavyweight fights, you still have to appreciate that they'll probably have you on the edge of your seat, especially if you got a bet on it. That's why I don't want to have a bet on it, because I'm going to be on the edge of my seat all the time. Even if Daukaus is putting the hands on him, I'm just going to be worried that, Daukaus will get taken down. And then if I did have a bet on Daukaus, I'll be on the edge of my seat even more, shitting it because I know Alexei's always live for that sub. So don't go for a tea break if these guys are fighting, because I don't think the fight will last very long. And if it does, I think there's going to be quite a few entertaining moments in the fight. So that's my most exciting fight. And we will speak now about the most inaccurate betting line on the card. So look, there's a lot of inaccurate lines on every card, right? That's how we make money as sports bettors. We take advantage of them. But I'm going to say the obvious one here, guys, and it's a fight I touched on earlier. It's Andrei Arlovski versus Tom Aspinall. Now, look, there might be some recency bias here because Andrei Arlovski is, won his last 2 fights, squeaked a decision, and, he's looked very veteran-like when he's doing it. He slowed down the fight to his pace, and they gave us plus 200 range on Arlovski when he fought Linz, I believe. He was definitely an underdog. And then they did give us plus 200 definitely, or even better, when Arlovski fought Boza in his last fight. And they're doing it again against Tom Aspinall. And I just don't see how the bookies can be doing this, guys. If you go through tape of Tom Aspinall, right, it's laughable that you're going to make Tom Aspinall a minus 250 favorite here, because he hasn't shown us anything to warrant that price. He hasn't been fighting anybody. Anytime he's got out of round 1, he's lost the fight. I think one of the times he lost was by DQ, I believe. But, he's only won in round 1. And he's coming up against Arlovski here, who he knows how to fight. He knows how to squeak decisions. He knows how to stay away from power punches in round one. And I think that's what he's going to do here, guys. I do think this line should be lined way closer. Maybe you can put Arlovski as a plus 150 underdog, but you can't be putting Arlovski as a plus 200 underdog. I mean, when you get into plus 200, you're talking about 33% implied chance. And how can you say that Aspinall has a near 70% chance of winning this fight? You know, you can't, because, as I said, we haven't seen him out of round one. So Aspinall, I'm looking at his record now. His record is 9-2. So he's had 11 fight guys. You know, he's had 11 fights and only 2 in the UFC. And 2 came against, you know, I'm sorry for saying this, but Aspinall's 2 fights in the UFC came against complete bums. So if we switch to Arlovski's record, his record is 30-19. It's a lot of losses, guys, but it's a lot of fights. He's had 49 fights. This is going to be his 50th fight. And he's coming against Aspinall, who's going to be making his 12th fight. I mean, the experience gap is absolutely ridiculous. And Andrei Arlovski has been in there with Rosenstruik recently, Ngannou. You know, he fought Tanner Boser. Tanner Boser's a good heavyweight, guys. You know, Tanner Boser's fast on his feet. He's in and out. Arlovski was able to give him the veteran lesson and just do just a little bit more, hurt him at the end of rounds, and he was able to squeak a decision. I think that's definitely in play here against Tom Aspinall. So Tom Aspinall, I'm just looking at his record, right? So his first 3 fights ended in the first round. His 4th fight went into the second round and he lost by a heel hook. Then his next fight, he won in the first round. Then his following fight, it went into round 2 and he lost. Now, this was the DQ I was talking about. He lost by a 12-6 elbow. But he still lost, right? And then every single fight since then, which is 6 fights since then, which is the entirety of his career, he's won in the first round. One of them was actually a boxing bout. So I don't see how you can be betting Tom Aspinall as a minus 250 favorite when we just don't know what his gas tank's like after that second round, you know, after that 7.5 minute mark. We don't know how he's going to react if he can't knock Andrei Arlovski out in the first round. We don't really know about how much his output is over the 15 minutes. We don't know his, you know, mentality, as I said, if he doesn't get the quick knockout. There's so many questions here. And if you're giving me Andrei Arlovski at a number of plus 200 to find out them questions, I'm betting it all day, guys. So I'm telling you now, I've got a bet on Andrei Arlovski at plus 200. I'm not sure where the line's going to go. I could see money coming back in on Andrei Arlovski, but then I could see the public parlaying up Tom Aspinall. So, you know, if I was you, because of this uncertainty where the line's going to go, I'd probably just jump in now. As I say, guys, this is I'd say probably a very volatile matchup because we don't know what's going to happen right now. He could go out there and knock him out in 20 seconds. You know, he could easily do that. I mean, his last fight, he won in 1 minute, 30 seconds. Fight before that, 45 seconds. Fight before that, 56 seconds. So Tom Aspinall could very well go out there and put out Andrei Arlovski within 30 seconds, you know, within the first round, just like Jairzinho Rosenstruik and just like Francis Ngannou has done. But what if he doesn't do that? Then you're going to be kicking yourself because you don't have a plus 200 ticket on Arlovski. And plus 200 is a big price, right? So again, I am not saying that Arlovski's a lock here. I never say that about Andrei Arlovski. I'm not saying Arlovski's even the better fighter here. I mean, he's shown a lot better things, but we just haven't seen it from Aspinall. Aspinall could be the heavyweight champion at some point. I mean, who knows, right? But that's the thing. We don't know. So I am playing Arlovski and I am going to find out. And if it loses, I'm going to be happy with my bet. Seriously, guys, if Aspinall goes out there and knocks him out in 30 seconds, I will be happy with my bet because I've been in this game long enough to know that these type of spots are profitable long term. When you fade a guy coming in with this many question marks, against someone with no question marks. We know what we're getting with a veteran like Andrei Arlovski. I know that this game, you know, playing these big underdogs who have no question marks against these young, up-and-coming, hyped-up prospects who have all the question marks, this is profitable long-term. And if you want to be profitable with it long-term, you can't just bet it once. Do you know what I mean? So, because you're not going to be profitable then, right? Because probably more times they will lose. You'll probably lose this bet more times than not, or maybe it'll be half and half. But because we're getting a plus 200 odds, we don't need to win it more often than we lose, right? That's mathematics. Plus 200, we only need to win 34% of these bets to have some profit. We only need to win 33.3% of the time to break even. If we win the bets 35% of the time, we'll have profit. If we win these type of bets 40% of the time, we'll have even more profit. If we win these bets just half the time, you know, just half, only half, 50% of the time, we'll be laughing. We'll have loads of profit. We'll have a 17% edge on the bookies and a 17% profit. So not 17% in, you know, how much money you put down, but, you know, 17% edge on the bookies. So however much you put down, that's how much you'll get back. So I'm happy to make this bet, you know, and I don't see how you're not if you're a serious sports bettor. Look, sometimes you just don't want to put your money behind a fighter, right? There are fighters out there like that even if I like the odds, even if I think the odds are off, even if I think there's value on the line, I don't want to bet on a certain fighter, right? Someone like Michael Johnson is kind of like that. And in fact, I fade Michael Johnson a lot because of that. So I thought Michael Johnson, just to go off topic a little bit, I thought Michael Johnson was, you know, at a pretty playable line when he fought Clay Guida. I played Clay Guida in that fight, you know, and God, Clay Guida basically dominated that fight. So I understand there are some fighters out there that you don't want to put your money behind, but I don't think Andrei Arlovski is one of them, you know. Look, he does have a weak chin. He takes some shots off, you know, Boza and Felipe Lins, and his chin stood up well. But, you know, we can't kid ourselves. Andrei Arlovski has been knocked out so many times. He definitely has a dodgy chin, and Aspinall could easily knock him out. But as I said, I don't need to explain it any more than I have done. I've explained it in depth, why the reason I'm backing Andrei Arlovski. But I just want to stress that point to any guys new to MMA gambling or new to gambling in general, that it's not about winning every bet, guys. It's about finding value on the line. That's how you win long term. Most people can't find value on the line, though. So you'll hear all the time, value on the line, find value on the line. But, you know, the sad, cold, hard truth is that 98% of people who gamble don't know what value looks like. They can't find value on the line. So you're better off just backing winners or trying to find winners and, you know, backing for fun, because most people can't consistently find value on the line. I have a third-party track record long-term, and I've been betting for a lot longer than that, and I've proven to be able to find value on the line consistently. But you have to keep the bookies honest, like Z, my friend Z from Z's MMA likes to say, and you have to consistently bet these spots, because, you know, even if you're finding value on the line, right, at plus 200 in these type of spots where the aging veteran is fighting the young up-and-comer, even if you're finding value on the line, if you just miss just one of them, you change everything. If you don't bet one time, you know, on one of these, then you've missed out on a potential opportunity. Now that bet might win. And now what that means is that you're going to have to win at a higher percentage than you would have had to break even or to win money. So it's pretty tricky, because you kind of have to do it all the time in order to ride out that variance. You know, you have to bet on these spots for a long time in order to ride out that variance. But if you do it long term, you will win, as long as you can find the correct spots, you know. So a bit of a passionate speech from me there, but, you know, and I say all that, and Arlovski's probably going to get knocked out in 30 seconds this weekend. And I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, that's what Aspinall does, right? I mean, as I said, I've just gone through his record. Every single fighter he's knocking out in a minute. But yeah, I've got a bet on Arlovsky here, 1 unit play, and I'm hoping that he can squeak out another dodgy, boring Arlovsky decision. I hope he's going to keep the ball rolling in 2021. So I will go over a little bit more of the card, but that's basically it. That's going to be how the podcast is structured. Now, I will say that every week I'm going to have a guest on, but because it was my first episode, I just wanted to get the hang of it myself and do a solo episode. So I guess this is what you call a solo cast, just to ease everybody in. But next week, I will be having a guest on, and each week from then, I will be having a guest on, and I will be letting the guest pick the most inaccurate betting line, the most exciting fight, and obviously, we'll talk about the main event. It will be good to go back and forth with someone. Not everybody's got the same opinion as me, and you can always learn something. Even if you're the best in your craft, you can always learn something from someone else. So definitely stay tuned for that. And yeah, let's go over a little bit of the rest of the card. I won't talk too much because this is not a full card breakdown podcast, but a couple of the other fights that I'd like to talk about are Danny Chavez and Jared Gordon. I'll speak about this one because, as I said, this is probably going to be one of the most exciting fights on the card. Jared Gordon may be able to make it not that exciting if he just spams takedowns, but I do think it's going to be a pretty exciting fight. Danny Chavez, he looks like a very exciting fight. He comes out throwing spinning heel kicks, very fast spinning heel kicks as well, like he's been practicing Taekwondo his whole life. And I know that the betting MMA community, MMA betting community, I should say, are very split on this. So, well, I won't say they're split. I've seen a couple contrarian takes where people are taking Jared Gordon, but I think most people are on Danny Chavez here, right? I think, look, this is a very hard fight for me. I'm not going to bet on this fight. Danny Chavez can come out there and blow Jared Gordon out of the water. Jared Gordon has been stopped in round 1 a couple of times. Danny Chavez has had a couple of round 1 stoppages on his record. And in his last fight against TJ Brown, kind of live for the round 1 stoppage there because TJ Brown, got hit with some hard shots. But, I could see this fight going either way. I could see Danny Chavez smacking up Jared Gordon, but then I could also see Jared Gordon coming back and wrestling him, pushing him up against the cage and able to grind out a decision or possibly even get that 3rd round stoppage because Danny Chavez is kind of susceptible to slowing down. It seems he did kind of slow down in that TJ Brown fight, even though he had the wherewithal to get takedowns and reverse position there. So I was impressed with that. But I saw his fight on his regional scene against Wayne Hutchinson, and he slowed down in that fight big time. So it's strange because I do feel like Jared Gordon has the style to beat Danny Chavez, but then I do think Danny Chavez has the style to like really badly hurt Jared Gordon because on the feet, I do think they're levels apart, even though they haven't fought the same level of fighter. You can kind of just sometimes tell, and I can tell that Danny Chavez is much higher level than Jared Gordon on the feet. So that's going to be a very exciting fight. I don't know what way that's going to go. Shayna Dobson versus Casey O'Neill. Let's touch quickly on this fight. This fight's going to be interesting, right? Because Casey O'Neill opened as a pretty huge favorite. A lot of money's come back on Shayna Dobson, and you probably never thought you heard that. But yes, people are betting Shayna Dobson. The line is closing up pretty substantially now. I mean, if it carries on, Casey O'Neill will probably only go off as a slight favorite. She opened up at minus 200 or 220 or so. Shayna Dobson, obviously her last time out, she fought Maria Agapova. And, everyone thought that was a sacrifice fight, right? People were saying that it was impossible that Shayna Dobson could win. People were saying like sometimes there's certainties in MMA and this was a certainty. There's no certainties in MMA, guys. Fluffy Hernandez just choked out Rodolfo Vieira. So Shayna Dobson stopping Maria Agapova, it's probably on the same level. We did know Vieira had terrible striking and bad gas tank. But anyway, Shayna Dobson is riding high off that win, right? She was like such a huge underdog. Maria Agapova is a minus 1,000 favorite, ridiculous odds. And Shayna Dobson, it's not that she done anything well in that fight apart from survive. It's just that Maria Agapova gassed out. Now, I don't want to give Shayna Dobson no credit. I mean, she was meant to get knocked out in a minute, but she ended up surviving. And, she got takedowns in that second round, and she was able to wear on Maria Agapova, survive the beatdown that she took in that first round, almost got stopped, almost got choked out herself, put in a couple bad positions on the ground anyway. And she rallied and got the finish in the second round. So you got to rate Shayna Dobson for that. But Shayna Dobson, it's no secret about Shayna Dobson. She's not very good on the ground. So she's actually got 0% takedown defense, which is, I don't want to be rude, but it's kind of hilarious. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen that. I've seen that when guys have defended one takedown and they couldn't defend it, which means they've got 0% takedown defense because they've only tried to defend one takedown and they couldn't defend it. But Shayna Dobson's had 8 takedowns in her career. So what I mean by that is people have attempted to take her down 8 times in her career over like 4 different UFC fights. And she's got taken down every single time. So she has 0% takedown defense. I've seen 20%, 25%, but I've never seen 0, especially not with someone, with like that many opportunities to defend a takedown. 8 is quite a lot, guys, especially I think there was in like 4 different fights. I know Sabina Marzo completely dominated her on the ground, and Sabina Marzo, she's kind of known for her head kicks when she came into the UFC. So, it was kind of strange to see her just like Khabib Nurmagomedov, Shayna Dobson there. And unfortunately for her, Casey Neal is she's a bit of a grappler. So it looks like, there's not a lot of tape on Casey O'Neill. And the fighters she has fought have been very, very low level. To be honest, I probably favor Shayna Dobson on the feet here. And then I definitely favor Casey O'Neill, I should say, in the grappling. Now, will Casey O'Neill come out here and be able to get her grappling going? I mean, you would assume so, just because everybody else has been able to do it to Shayna Dobson. But I will say Shayna Dobson pretty tricky on the feet in the fact that she's in and out. She's light on her feet. She's got some swag to the way she fights. She's not completely wild with overhands and she's just super easy to get taken down. It's just that if someone does get in on her hips, she's basically going down. So this fight comes down to whether Casey O'Neill was, drastically fall in love with her striking and wants to go strike for strike with Shayna Dobson. If that's the case, then she definitely probably will get beat, in my opinion. I do favor Shayna Dobson on the feet here, although it'd probably be pretty close. But if Casey can, wear on her, grapple her, then she should cruise to an easy victory here. So a little bit of a volatile fight in the fact that, if she can't get one aspect of the game going, Casey, she's probably gonna lose a decision. And then if she is able to get a grappling going, she's probably going to stop Shayna Dobson. She might look like a, minus 400. So a little bit volatile in that way. And you do have to take into account Casey O'Neill is a very young fighter. She's been fighting nobodies and she's making a UFC debut. So usually I stay away from fighters that making a UFC debut and are very young in the game and also have been fighting awful competition. So Casey's got like 3 of my stay away from there, but it does seem like a favorable matchup for her. So, I am excited to see how that one will go. It's probably one of the lowest level fights on the card. So it's interesting I'm saying that, but I definitely am excited to see how that one goes. So I think that's it for today, guys. It's been the first episode. We've been going for 43 minutes now, and I will catch up with the chat because I'm streaming this live on YouTube. I will be streaming this podcast live on YouTube every single week. And then after that, it will be uploaded to, the podcast, all the podcast apps, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all of that stuff. But I will just catch up with the chat before I sign off. But thanks for listening. Anybody who's been here from the start, anybody who joined in, you've listened to my first podcast, the first edition of the Lucrative MMA Betting Podcast. So all I can say is thank you. And I hope some of my breakdowns today will help you make some money. If you did want to make money with me and get all of my bets as opposed to, just get 2 or 3 that I've given you, or 2 or 3 breakdowns I've given you today, you can sign up for a membership package with me. We have a long-term third-party track record. You're virtually guaranteed to make money over the year. You can sign up for a month, sign up for 6 months, sign up for a year. Just go to lucrativemmabetting.com. Or you can just shoot me a DM if you got any questions. My DMs are always open. I'm easy to speak to. You can find me at Lucrative MMA on Twitter and, again, Lucrative MMA on Instagram. I have sports betting training courses available on my website as well. If you sign up for a membership, you'll get access to them immediately. And I also have a free tips page on my website where you can go put your email address in, and anytime I send out a free tip, I'll go straight to your email inbox. Again, subscribe to me on YouTube. You can like me on YouTube, subscribe to me on YouTube. I put out a lot of MMA betting content that will help you be a better MMA bettor. And I put out a free bet on YouTube once a week as well. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in to the Lucrative MMA Betting Podcast, and I will see you in the next one. Now, let's just check out the chat here. I haven't looked at it all show because I just wanted to do the podcast, but here we go. Oh, this is Luke from Sparring with Reality Betting, popping in to say, what's up, Lucrative? Congrats on the launch. Thanks, Luke. I appreciate that. Can't wait to have Luke on as a guest. I'm definitely going to be having him on as a guest. Anyone who doesn't know Luke, very, very sharp guy. I think he's got a Patreon where he breaks down fights. Definitely go and support him, because not only will you make money from his breakdowns and his betting tips, but, you know, you also learn a lot about how to read MMA in general. You know, the way he breaks down fights is very analytical, and you can definitely learn something from his breakdown. He's very articulate as well. Some people are not very good at that, right? I don't think I'm particularly good at that. Sometimes my thoughts are all over the place, but Luke seems to be able to condense his thoughts and articulate them very well when it comes to breaking down MMA matchups anyway. So shout out to Luke. I'll have him on a podcast soon, probably in the next few weeks. I'm sure he'll be on there. We did speak about doing it for the UFC 259 card, which is a huge card. So, you know, hopefully he can come on for that, but we'll see. El Major, thanks for being here. I'm real good, feeling good. My mouth's a bit dry, though. I didn't have a water through that whole thing, so I'm just going to have some water now. If you're still in the chat, light up the chat, man. We can have a conversation before I shoot off. There's still 7 of you here, so... You know, it's 7 now, but at some point it's gonna be 700, guys. So if you're here now, you was here from the launch of this. So thank you. El Major is saying, I have a question. Who will win, John Jones versus Israel Adesanya? Well, will they ever fight? You know, John Jones moved up to heavyweight now. I don't see Izzy going up to heavyweight. I know he said he will go up to heavyweight, but man, I don't see Izzy jumping up 2 weight classes. And it's not like he's jumping up 2 weight classes like, let's say, what would be the least? Like flyweight to featherweight, you know, it's only 20 pounds. But if Izzy was to jump up to heavyweight, that'd be 185 to 240. I mean, you know, most of the heavyweights are around 240. You know, you can come in lower than that, but there's no limit. So it's 260. So Izzy'd have to jump up 30, 40 pounds. You know, it's a bit much. Will John Jones come down to light heavyweight? I think he will. You know, if they offer him enough money, I think he will. But again, I mean, John Jones is a big dude and he's looking huge now. So, you know, if he does win the heavyweight title, which he may do because he's going to fight the winner of Stipe and Ngannou, is he really going to want to come down? Especially against Izzy. I feel like he really dislikes Izzy. I don't know if he'd want to give Izzy a big money fight like that, but it just seems like they've got to fight, right? I mean, I know Dana's going to be pushing for that. So Dana usually gets what he wants, guys. So, you know, I could see that happening. Now, the question, who's going to win, John Jones or Israel Adesanya? Okay, let's just say it's at light heavyweight, right? John Jones, Israel Adesanya. Got to go with John Jones, man. You got to go with John Jones, you know. I mean, I know he hasn't looked his best in his last 2 fights. Izzy's looked like an absolute beast, but Izzy's a striker, guys. You know, I know he's been working on his takedown defense, but we saw what Vettori done to him. Look, that was a long time ago. That might have been 4 or 5 years ago now, you know. But think of the size difference between Marvin Vettori and John Jones, you know. It's hilarious, you know. Like, if John Jones gets hold of Izzy, man, you've got to believe Izzy's going for a ride. John Jones has got good takedowns. Look, he wasn't able to take Dominic Reyes down. You know, but Dominic Reyes he's a big man. You know, he's a bigger man than Israel Adesanya. He's very athletic too. And Dominic Reyes, you know, I know he hasn't been training MMA for too long, but he trains MMA, you know, like he trained MMA from the start, I believe. Obviously, he probably did have a discipline, maybe boxing, but Izzy was a striker for 10 years, you know. I don't know. I feel like John Jones will be able to take him down. Now, on the feet, you know, he will get eaten up, but I don't think, like, John Jones has got one of the best chins that we've ever seen of all time, Max Holloway level chin, you know. So I don't think Izzy's just going to put him out like that, especially because if you read the book Fightnomics, and I might have it here. I don't have it here, but I do have the book. But if you read the book Fightnomics, right, it tells you, like, what is the easiest way to predict knockouts, and basically it's size, right? So it's when the guy has a reach advantage, a height advantage, a weight class advantage, or a weight advantage. And you know, it's going to be a lot harder for Izzy to knock out someone like John Jones than Paulo Costa or someone who's at basically the same weight as him, you know. So I'll lean John Jones. He's the greatest of all time, possibly. And the disparity in grappling and wrestling and jiu-jitsu is probably bigger. It's probably more dangerous in an MMA fight than the disparity between the striking with Izzy and John Jones, right? If you understand. So maybe the disparity in the striking between Izzy and John Jones is more than the disparity in wrestling and jiu-jitsu. Maybe they're probably about the same. I don't know. I know Izzy is a much higher level striker than Jones, but you know, Jones is a solid MMA striker. We're not talking about pure striking here. So possibly the disparity is bigger in the striking. You know, it's arguable. I'll give you that. But I think the danger disparity in the grappling is more than the danger disparity in the MMA striking, if you understand what I mean. So if it's a 25-minute kickboxing battle in MMA gloves, you know, I think that Izzy will win, but it would be closer than if it was a 25-minute jiu-jitsu grappling battle with MMA gloves, if you know what I mean. John's way more live for the sub than Izzy's live for a knockout, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm going to go with John Jones, but I mean, I haven't done tape. So disclaimer here, this is pre-tape. So who knows, guys? I might watch tape and go, oh, Izzy's going to knock him out. So like, I can only give what I'm giving. Tom S is saying, bro, what's up, bro? Shawnee Mac, what it do, big dog? Not much, man. Loving the insight. Very fair. Thank you, bro. Appreciate that. It's only just starting. Henry Wells, here from the start, baby. Yes. You're here from the start. You know, there's 7 of you in the chat. There's going to be 700 soon. As I said, 7,000, 70,000. Let's aim for the stars. So, you know, I'll remember you, Henry, for sure. And thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate it. Seriously. Woody's World. Howdy, Jimmy. Just got on the first round of bets. Yes, Woody. What's up, man? So Woody's jumped on the first round of bets. So that's the bets sent out. You know, you should have been getting on them first round of bets long time ago, man. You know, I told you this before. I send the bets out as soon as I make the bets. And, you know, most of the bets I make, the lines drop, you know, against us. So when I send bets out to all of my members, they really should be getting on the bets as soon as possible because the line will change. And after a while, you know, after a long time, in long term, that's going to make a difference to your bankroll. So that's it, guys. That's it. It's all right, bro. Next time. Okay, that's it, man. I hope you guys enjoyed the first episode of the Lucrative MMA Betting Podcast. Subscribe to me on the podcast apps. It won't be up now. Just remember, next week, I'll probably be live later tonight or tomorrow. So you can sign up to me on there, and I'm mixing up my words now, so I definitely better get off the stream. But thanks, everybody, for coming. I've enjoyed it. And tomorrow I'll be putting my free bet video out on YouTube. So subscribe to me on YouTube if you want to know when that comes out. And again, go on my website and you can sign up for free tips and stuff there. And you can sign up for membership packages if you want to make money with me. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for being here.